Now, I'm joined on the line by a man you're very familiar with on LMFM radio. He is Honorary President of CuChulainn Cycling Club and was a member of the Board of Cycling Ireland. Pat O'Shaughnessy, afternoon, Pat.
Good afternoon, Jerry.
Thanks for joining me on the show. I suppose first you join with everybody and ourselves in thinking of Sean and his family today.
It's every cyclist's worst nightmare, Jerry, and when somebody close to us like that, that's known to the public so well, when it happens in a family like that, you automatically just feel it yourself. You have that empathy. And I think the crowd that turned out last night is testament to that, because it's every family's worst nightmare that a member of their family, one of their loved ones, is struck or involved in a road traffic accident and ends up in intensive care. And as you said there, we wish Sean Owens all the very best.
Thanks for that, Pat. Pat, you're on the road, man and boy, on your bike. You've been there as our roads have changed. Our roads have developed. The traffic on our roads have grown. And as a cyclist, you mentioned to me earlier on when we were talking that your greatest fear is when you're on the bike that you're going to be hit from behind, Pat.
It's a sad reality, and before I did this piece, I took the time to ring quite a few different cyclists, and every single one of us would be the same, that our biggest fear is being hit from behind. And you can put on all the high vis and all the lights that you can and drive and cycle as safely as you wish, but it's just there in the back of your mind, Jerry, and there is so much going on in cars nowadays, and the fact that 99.9% of cyclists are drivers as well, I think we need to do something where drivers need to ride a bike to understand how difficult it is to cycle at the side of the road, the condition of the side of the road. But our fear comes from the distraction that's in cars nowadays. And again, I was talking to colleagues who are well adversed in motoring and motoring safety, and it's now deemed that driving is number 4 or possibly even number 5 down the list of people's priorities when they're driving a vehicle. Their lives have become so busy. So you take the radio is on, the phone is active, the infotainment screen is going, the WhatsApp might beep on it, there's children in the back, the sat-nav. Driving the car is slipping down. And all it takes is a tiny bit of distraction, which is happening all the time, to veer off course or not to see what's happening. If you're driving as slowly as 50 kilometres an hour, you are travelling at 15 metres per second. So if you avert the road for 2 seconds, you've covered 30 metres, and the damage that you can do in that 30 metres is just mind-boggling, Jerry.
And that's only 50, Pat. That's only 50 kilometres an hour.
That's why I use the figure of 50. That's at 50. So you double that and you veer off the road. You cover a huge amount of ground while you're distracted. And as we talked off air, Jerry, there is so much going on in cars now that distract the drivers from what they're actually doing on the road. And I think when you ride a bike, and if you filter through traffic when you come into slower traffic, you look and every third vehicle is either on their phone, on their lap, or scrolling through the infotainment screen on their car. It's extraordinary.
You did make the point, and you've seen this over the years in the development of motor vehicles and, as I said, the road network as well. You said to me as well, another point I'll make, and it's very good. You've made me think, you really have, with the conversation we had earlier. You said if you needed to hire the heating, you turned the knob. If you needed, to do something else, there was something, it was simple. It was a lever you had to move left or right, a knob or something like that. But now, you're right, when you look at that screen in the car, my God, you're driving a computer, Pat.
It's so true, and I know there are so many driver aids, and if people do make themselves aware, some of these devices have voice-activated controls where you can talk to the vehicle, but most people don't do it. And if you want to do the simple thing, like you said there, of turn the heat up, you have to avert your gaze from the road ahead of you. You have to look at this dash that has now become your phone, it has now become your sat-nav. You have to select the menu to turn your heat up or select the menu to turn your radio down. It's I think it's just distracting. And I've read more columns in recent months because I'm avid about this, being a cyclist and being a motorcyclist. I love to read these articles when they come up in or around awareness of your vehicle when you're on the road and other road users. And they all are now beginning to agree that these infotainment screens have become way too clustered, way too busy, way too much going on, and that the simple tasks are not easy to do.
And Pat, that's the way it is. I've seen it in recent days myself with new cars, the way they've changed even from a model, say 2-3 years ago, what's available now, where everything is located. And it takes a bit of time to sort out everything. In fact, you need to be stationary to really, use the screen, etc., safely and properly. Pat, there's no going back in this. This is the way it's all going forward.
And that's the frightening thing. And I do know that more manufacturers are now having voice control, activated controls where you can turn up the heat, you can turn down the radio. But people need to familiarise themselves. But if I go through that other list, the radio is going, your phone is now up in front of you on the dash, your sat-nav is now, and then you throw into children in the back of the car, be whatever you're doing, they occupy your time. And then move away from the car to the cyclist on the road. The side of the road and the state of the roads in Ireland at the verge is terrible. Most cyclists will ride on the hard shoulder if it's available to them. Not them all. There are rogue cyclists, and I'll hold my hand up there. I've driven up behind them. I've seen them in black at night. I've seen them out in the middle of the road, and I've been very annoyed at them as well. Those cyclists do exist. But the problem with riding at the side of the road is it is so dirty, it is so riddled in potholes. I have an advanced motorcycle licence. You're taught to ride what's called a defensive position, which is out commanding the position on the road. You're out of the debris, you're out of the potholes, and you can do that. But you can do that on a motorbike because you're travelling at the same speed as the other traffic. You cannot do that on a bike. And if you do that on a bicycle, the motorists behind you are screaming at you because you're out in the middle of the road. And there's an education piece here for absolutely everybody, Jerry, for engineers, for cyclists, for drivers. It's holistic. It's not a one fix all.
Do you think, Pat, though, I notice now the new roads down where I am, you'd be familiar with it, on the Ballymckenny there and the cross route. Yes. They have cycle routes, lovely cycle routes now incorporated, beside the road, and there's space for cyclists. And they're trying to, make cycling safer on older existing roads. What's your view on that? You mentioned the hard shoulder, how difficult it can be. Is enough being done? What can be done to improve, the cyclist lot?
We are very slow to it. There is no doubt. I mean, I cycled all over the continent, and the amount of infrastructure that's available to cyclists is incredible. They thrive on cycle tourism. They have the facilities, they have the segregated lanes. But the side of the roads where these tourist spots are in terrific condition, and there certainly seems to be more of a tolerance for cyclists as well. But I mean, you only look at Holland, it's only a 2-hour trip away, and have a look at how they cycle there. You can put your children on the back, you can have any sort of a bicycle at all, and you know that you're going to cycle quite safely. We're a country mile away from that in this country, a country mile. And some of the cycle lanes that I've seen are poorly designed if you had cycled on the ones that are in the European norm. But you're right, the ones that we see on the Ballymckenny Road, that is a great positive step forward. They are brilliant, they're wide, they're clean, they're segregated, and that's the way we need to go. But Jerry, that's only a couple of kilometre stretch.
Yeah, it's tiny, Pat. It is. It's really small in the context when you look at all the roads in Louth and Meath and that we're talking about. Pat, I honestly tell you this. I say to people when I hear people getting bikes and that and going to go out, and yet they get the reflectors, they get the high-vis, they put their helmets on as well. But my heart would be in my mouth with them going out. You know this yourself. Many of the roads that we see people cycling on, it's a danger, Pat. It's a real fear, a real danger for people.
It absolutely is. And like a huge amount of my social circle around the motorcyclists or cyclists. And when you hear of an incident, you have a sharp intake of breath because you know invariably you're going to know them or you're going to know a family member. You're right, Jerry. It is becoming all too frequent. I mean, if you consider there's less than 4% of the motoring population travel on motorbikes, on motorcycles or bicycles. Yet they make up 39% of the serious injuries in our statistics. And I hate the word statistics because there's human beings behind them, but they are numbers, they're statistics. So if you think of that, less than 4% of that travelling population makes up 39% of the serious injuries on our road. Something has got to be looked at holistically to make this awareness campaigns through school, and I think that should be done at a much earlier age. We did promote through our club, and we did it for years, but we ran out of funding where we were going into primary schools and we were teaching children how to ride bikes. But when you teach them to do that, you teach them to be aware of a bike. You teach them that it's a person that's on the bike. What happens with so many individuals, when they're in the car, they fail to recognise that the individual on the bike that's holding them up on the road is a human being, is a family member. Yes. And that is the point that we need to drive home. And we need to be doing that in primary school. And then do it again through secondary school. And then when you get to transition year where you become a motorist, you're fully aware of the vulnerability of an individual who's on a bicycle.
Points really, really, really well made. Look, when we out this and talk about it, hopefully it is raising awareness. So your message today, Pat, to listeners is, if you're a motorist, really do take care. Concentrate, all those things that are to be done. A little move can make a shocking difference in a short space of time. And from the other perspective, cycling lanes and improving our roads for cyclists, education, they're the messages today.
Absolutely, 100%, Jerry. Succinct as always. No dear doubt about it. And if we could get those 3 points home, and we need to start doing it at primary school, it's too late at secondary school. We've had this, I cycle with guards, I cycle with safety operators all over the country, and we all say the same thing. Do it like they do it on the continent. Teach it from primary school. Teach the vulnerability, teach the awareness, teach the dangers.
Pat, you're great. Honorary President of CuChulainn Cycling Club and board member of Cycling Ireland in his time. Thanks so much for joining me on the show today.
You're very welcome, Jerry. Thank you.
Thanks, Pat.